I had a very funny notion earlier today that I would read up a little bit on what I'm going to talk to you about. And I started in this book, got laughing because it doesn't really amount to anything at all. It's all words about words. And they were debating as to whether it was true that there's such a thing as causality, or that there isn't. Whether the cause and effect are the same event or different events. And they decided that they couldn't be the same because that would reduce the whole world to just a wodge of undifferentiated goo. On the other hand, they decided they couldn't be completely different because they'd have no connection with each other. And so the whole argument fizzled. And you have to realize that to what an enormous extent we are all utterly bewitched by words and are trying all our lives long to solve problems which only words create, because the human being has got himself into a very funny bind. Having developed words which are enormously useful, obviously, we at the same time pay a price for them. And we are simultaneously, you see, helped and bewitched by words. And so you could say that being under Maya, under illusion, is also being spellbound and enchanted. Because when you lay a spell, you do it by spelling. You see, you make a magic with words. When a stage magician does some extraordinary feat in front of you, he always accompanies it with patter. And his talk, his line, is to distract your attention from what he's actually doing. And so by getting you enchanted with words, you don't notice what's going on. In the same way, when people hypnotize you, it's very difficult to hypnotize a person without talking to them, but very easy if you talk. And you can hypnotize people in all kinds of ways that don't involve the standard routines. That is to say, the standard routines are making people stare at a bright object or at some revolving disc or tricks of this kind. But you can induce hypnosis just with words, and they don't even know they're being hypnotized. So, in a way, then, it is all philosophical problems and all religious problems are problems of language. Because if you don't use words, you don't have any problems. And that's the most extraordinary thing. You think, you see, that you've got words to help you solve your problems, so that you can communicate with each other about things and help each other out and so on. That's true. It does, to a certain extent. Words do solve practical problems, like, please pass me the salt, and would you light the fire for me, and let's go for a walk, shall we go hunting today, etc. All these things can be solved by words. But then, when you start really getting deeply involved in words, what you do is this. You assign words to various aspects of experience. But the thing is that you wouldn't know what an aspect was unless you had words. The world it's true, we say it's differentiated because we see different shapes, different colors, and different motions, and we assign words to these differentiations, and so come to believe that the differentiations in the world are really different. But actually, when you see a cloud, it's true, the cloud is got lots of bumps on it. Now the question arises then, how many bumps does a cloud have on it? And are these bumps the same as the cloud or different from the cloud? Well, that's an asinine question, because it's only a question about how you're going to define it. It isn't a question about the cloud. And so in exactly the same way as a cloud is constantly moving and changing, or watch some cigarette smoke in the air, this is a lovely weaving pattern. Watch it in a beam of sunlight, you know. And it's intricate, like a marvelous Moorish arabesque. But is each line of smoke a thing? Is it a separate event? Now you see the Buddhists look at the world as a weaving of smoke. That everything is in a state of flux or flow. And so the differentiation of things cannot hold except as a purely abstract and intellectual construct. But the power of these words is such that they can alter your feelings. And you notice this in early childhood, that children become completely fascinated with words, and they squabble more about words than about anything. Also, children become fascinated by adults' sense of time. A child goes through a very strange development, because on the one hand, a child has an enormous capacity for living in the present, for getting completely lost in, say, throwing pebbles into the water and watching the waves, or making funny noises and just making them and making them and making them, or sitting in front of a mirror and making faces. But the moment children get involved with their parents and their parents' system, which the children don't understand, because parents playing, what happens, you see, is adults play games, and they don't let the children in on the rules. They say, you're not old enough to understand this yet. And they're not frank about it because they're not too clear themselves. So children are constantly obfuscated by our rules, but also fascinated. So then, the time thing really gets children, because they're taught, all the adults are busy looking forward to something, see? So there are great occasions like Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, 4th of July for fireworks, you see, and your birthday. And that's a special occasion. So children get this feeling that they'd like the calendar to cut out all the intervening days. And they just can't wait till the next event comes up. And so they want Christmas. And then boom, birthday. Then boom, Easter. You see, and boom, 4th of July. Or whatever like that, you see. They just can't wait. And this is because, you see, they are showing their bewitchment. Then also another thing children do is calling each other names. And they get very, very het up because somebody says to Johnny, you're a sissy. And you call me a sissy, and that's just terrible. I am not a sissy. Or I am not, if he's learned to identify himself as a boy and somebody says he's a girl, there's a real fight about that, because they are terribly particular that the right word should apply to the right thing, and I am not what you tell me I'm, because the whole education of a child is really telling him who he is. All the teachers, all the adults, all the other children are constantly telling each other who they are. And alas, we believe it. And so you come not to know who you are at all. You come to believe that you're what everybody tells you are. And so this gets very funny indeed, because we are all at once telling each other that we are unique. You see, you're different from me, and you're the only thing like you in the world. But at the same time, we're saying to each other, but you ought to be just like me. Because after all, if you're not really like me, you're so far out, you're not human. And so the more we tell each other that we are like each other, the less point there is in talking to each other. Because after all, if you're just the same as I am, we've got nothing to talk about. I can't learn anything from you because you're just like me. Then on the other hand, if you really are different from me, then I can find out something I never knew before. But I told you who you were in the first place, and you told me who I was. So we're making each other up. So long as, that is to say, as we live in that domain of words and defining who and what we are. Now, look at this whole thing. This is the situation. Maya, then, is to a very large extent a verbal creation. You notice cats.